What is going on, everybody? It's New York Sports Up here, back at it with another baseball video, and I'm going to be making my Cy Young predictions for the 2020 season. Now, a couple days ago, I made my MVP predictions for the 2020 season. Now, I'm going to be doing my Cy Young predictions, and this is a video I once again wanted to do for a long time. I worked hard on, so once again, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like and subscribe to the channel for daily Yankees and Giants content, as also content from, whatever's going around with the MLB and the NFL. So, let's get it started for my Cy Young predictions. So, I'm going to be doing my American League predictions first, the pitchers in the American League that I think that can win the Cy Young. I'm going to be doing my three, main candidates, I think the front runners to win the Cy Young, and I'm also going to be doing my three honorable mentions. So, let's get it started with my first guy that I think that can win it. And this is my pick to win the AL Cy Young, and that is Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole was one of the highest paid pitchers in MLB history. We gave him 9 years, over $300 million, and now I'm not just saying this, I don't think he can win the Cy Young because he's on the Yankees. Garrett Cole had over 300 strikeouts last year with the Astros. Ever since he came over from the Pirates to the Astros, Garrett Cole has been absolutely nasty. Had an ERA under 3. I thought he should have won the Cy Young last year over Verlander, but whatever. I thought Garrett Cole was the best pitcher in baseball last season besides deGrom, and he might be the second best pitcher in baseball. You can argue number one. I still think it's deGrom, but I think Garrett Cole is the best pitcher in the American League. Had over 300 strikeouts last year. You don't really see pitchers have over 300 strikeouts in a season. That's Nolan Ryan type stuff. You don't really see pitchers do that very often. And, Garrett Cole was absolutely unbelievable last year for the Astros. I think he can do even better for the Yankees. And I love Garrett Cole. I love when we signed him. He's the best pitcher on the market. And I think Garrett Cole is definitely a guy who can win the Cy Young. Without a doubt, can definitely win the Cy Young in 2020. My second guy, one of my main candidates, might surprise some people, but I'm going to go with Mike Clevinger. Mike Clevinger had a great year for the Indians last year. Now, once again, he's a nasty pitcher. He's not really like a pitcher that you really think about when you think about the word Cy Young. You don't really think of Clevinger, but I think Clevinger is definitely a guy that can win it. That can win the Cy Young this year. He's a very underrated pitcher. He pitches for the Cleveland Indians. The Indians have two great pitchers on that team, and another guy I'm going to talk about in a second is one of my honorable mentions. Another guy in the Indians I can talk about in a second. You might expect who it is. But Mike Clevinger is, once again, one of the more underrated pitchers in the league. I think Mike Clevinger is a sleeper pick to win the AL Cy Young, and he's one of my main candidates to win it this year, so he's my second guy. My third guy is Charlie Morton. What a first half Charlie Morton had last year. He was absolutely amazing for the Rays last year, and he's a veteran pitcher. He's kind of old, but Charlie Morton is still a really, really good pitcher, and he's one of the main reasons why the Rays pitching is so good. Charlie Morton had an amazing year last year. He's a veteran. He still pitches really well for like a guy his age. He still pitches really well, and he's one of the top pitchers in the American League. I think he might have finished third or fourth in the American League Cy Young voting last year. I think Charlie Morton is definitely a guy who could win the AL Cy Young. I'm also very high on the Rays this year. I think Charlie Morton is definitely a guy who can win the AL Cy Young in 2020. So those are my three main candidates. Now I'm going to go over to my three honorable mentions. My first guy is Justin Verlander. What else is there to say about Justin Verlander? He's one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. He's probably a top 3 or 4 pitcher in the league. And once again, he's old. Justin Verlander, I think, is 34, 35 years old, maybe a little bit younger. But Justin Verlander gets better with age. How does he do it? Justin Verlander gets better as he gets older. How does that make sense? He's a fine one. He only gets better with age. Shout out to Draftnik Mark. Justin Verlander is an absolute beast, on the mound. He's one of the best pitchers in the league, and he's definitely a guy that can win it. And the only reason why I'm not putting Justin Verlander as a main candidate is because of Justin Verlander kind of had an injury during spring training, so I don't know how healthy Justin Verlander will be. So I decided to put him as an honorable mention because of the injury he got in spring training. We don't know if Justin Verlander will be ready for opening day because he got an injury in spring training. So he is my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention is going to be Shane Bieber. Now, he's one of the other Indians pitchers that I was talking about earlier. Shane Bieber is a guy I think that can definitely win the Cy Young. I think he's definitely a sleeper pick to win the Cy Young this year. Won the All-Star Game MVP, although I didn't think he deserved it. It should have gone to Aroldis Chapman. Man, Shane Bieber had a great year for the Indians last year. He'll probably be their opening day starter, and you could argue that Bieber or Clevinger is the best pitcher on the Indian staff. You could argue both of them. Shane Bieber is one of the more underrated young pitchers in the game. I think Shane Bieber is a sleeper pick to win the Cy Young in 2020. He's my second honorable mention. My third and final honorable mention is Tyler Glasnow. Tyler Glasnow, before he got injured, was one of the best pitchers in baseball. Had an ERA under 2 before he got injured, and like kind of around the beginning of the season with the Rays. He got injured, but before the year, before the injury, Tyler Glasnow was nasty. He had an ERA under 2. I think that for the first month of April, he had an ERA under 2. He was absolutely nasty. And Tyler Glasnow, I think if he does pitch a full season, I think he is definitely a guy who can win the AL Cy Young in 2020. He's also one of the tallest pitchers in baseball. I think he's like 6'8" or 6'9". He's extremely tall, and he's one of the tallest pitchers in the game. Maybe he's like the next Randy Johnson or something like that. Tyler Glasnow is definitely a guy that I think that can definitely win. If he can stay healthy, I think he's definitely a guy that can win the AL Cy Young in 2020. So that's going to do it for the American League. I picked my 3 main candidates. I picked my 3 honorable mentions. So now let's move on to the National League. And the first guy that can win it, it's Jacob deGrom. Do I need to explain myself here? Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher in baseball. Now, you could argue Garrett Cole, but this is coming from a Yankees fan. I think Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher in baseball. Had an ERA under 3, had a 2.5, 2.4 ERA last year. Was absolutely nasty. deGrom has won 2 straight Cy Youngs. I think Jacob deGrom is a future Hall of Famer. That's a bold prediction. I think Jacob deGrom is a future Hall of Famer. And, this dude's just an unbelievable pitcher. I don't really need to say anything else. He's easily a guy that can definitely win the Cy Young in 2020. Do I really need to explain myself here? He's Jacob deGrom. He's the best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion. He's definitely a guy that could win the 2020 Cy Young for the National League in 2020. My second guy that can win it is Max Scherzer, another guy. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Now I think if you're talking to me a couple years ago, I think Max Scherzer would be the best pitcher in baseball, but Max Scherzer kind of has fallen off a little bit. But Max Scherzer is, once again, he's still one of the best pitchers in baseball. Even though he's 36 years old, he's still one of the best pitchers in the game, and he's just definitely a guy that can win it. On a great pitching staff down there in Washington, Max Scherzer is definitely a guy that can win the Cy Young in 2020. He's just one of the best pitchers in baseball. There's not really much to say. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Max Scherzer is definitely a guy that can win it. My third and final guy is Walker Buehler. Walker Buehler is an electric pitcher for the Dodgers. Now, Walker Buehler has a lot of energy, which I like in a pitcher, and Walker Buehler, once again, has, ever since he came up to the big leagues back in 2017, Walker Buehler has been one of the best pitchers in the National League. Now, he could go with Clayton Kershaw to be the ace of that staff. You could definitely say Clayton Kershaw's the ace, but I think Walker Buehler is. Walker Buehler is a great, great pitcher. He's a great, he's a stud of a pitcher. And I think he's definitely a guy that can win. And Walker Buehler was my sleeper pick to win the NL Cy Young. I think he's definitely very underrated. I feel like you still don't really hear much people talking about him. And with a great Dodgers team, I think the Dodgers are definitely the favorite to win the World Series in the National League. I think Walker Buehler is definitely a guy that can win the Cy Young. So those are my three. Those are my 3 main candidates for the National League. Now I'm going to move over to my honorable mentions for the National League. My first one is going to be Luis Castillo. Luis Castillo is a great young pitcher for the Reds. Now, Luis Castillo, when he first came into the big leagues, he wasn't anything special, but ever since 2019 happened, Luis Castillo had a great year last year. He throws hard. He's one of the hardest throwing pitchers in the league. He's nasty. He has great stuff. He's a young pitcher. I think he has a very bright future for the Reds, and I think the Reds are the Reds are going to be a very good team this year. I think Luis Castillo can, ride that team and maybe take the Reds to the World Series. They have a very easy schedule. You never know. Maybe the Reds can make it to the World Series this year. And I think Luis Castillo is one of the top, the top 5 or 6 pitchers in the National League. I think he's definitely a guy that could win the Cy Young in 2020. I think he's definitely a sleeper pick. My second guy, Steven Strosberg. Steven Strosberg is the World Series MVP. He was a first-round pick, in the MLB draft back in 2009. The same draft Mike Trout got drafted in. Fun fact. Steven Strosberg is, once again, he's a veteran, but he's still one of the best pitchers in baseball. He won the World Series MVP. How can you not love a guy that won the World Series MVP? And he's a great pitcher. He rode the Nationals to win the World Series. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's probably a top 5 pitcher in my opinion. And I just think he's a guy that can win it. I think it's not really a bold prediction. I think Steven Strasburg is just definitely a guy that can win it because Steven Strasburg is so damn good. He's a guy that could definitely win it. And my final guy in the National League that I think could win it, and this is my pick to win the Cy Young, is Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty had an amazing second half, and maybe he's the next, the best pitcher in Cardinals history. You never know. Maybe he can be the next, Bob Gibson or whatever. He's one of the best pitchers, and I've seen him in a very long time. He had an ERA under 1 in the second half. In the second half, Jack Flaherty was absolutely nasty. Now, I'm not high in the Cardinals this year. I don't think the Cardinals will be a great team, but Jack Flaherty was amazing for them last year. I think in the second half, he had an ERA under 1 or something like that. Jack Flaherty was nasty. He's my pick to win the National League Cy Young this year. And yeah, that's going to do it for my Cy Young picks. Put your Cy Young, predictions down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your picks. And once again, I think a lot of these pitchers are pretty obvious. I think they're definitely guys that can win it. I think they're the front runners. But once again, put your Cy Young predictions down in the comments below. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.